Hello everyone. Welcome to part 2 of our Math 171 final exam review. We're starting with question number 7 and going to 12. As with part 1, I'm only doing 6 questions so that you don't have to sit there for hours and watch me do all 30 to 40 questions that I have for you. Let's get started. Number 7, the graph of the function at y equals f of x is given below. Let's sketch the graph of the absolute value of f of x. Now remember that absolute value graphs have a very specific domain, negative infinity to positive infinity, and their range starts at 0 and goes to positive infinity. So when I look at this graph, it doesn't have that same kind of relationship. This graph has a range that goes down to -4 and goes up to positive infinity. So everything that is below the x-axis is going to get flipped upward, because we don't have any negative values in our absolute value graph unless it's multiplied by a negative. So what we do here is we are going to take this -4, the 0, -4, and we're going to graph it as 0, +4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the great thing about this is now we can look at our x-axis and kind of see exactly where our x-intercepts are, and they appear to be over at -2 and +2. And that's where our graphs are going to connect. Lucky for me and for you, we don't actually have to graph this the way that my pitiful graph is looking right now, but laugh at it if you will. I flip that bottom portion up, and the part that's already above the x-axis, it stays up above the x-axis and continues to go to positive infinity. So it looks like a real special W. So this is the graph of the absolute value of f of x. So what did we learn? Anything that falls below the x-axis automatically gets flipped above it, and anything that's already above it stays there. So it's not like they flip-flop, just the parts that are in the negative space. Because in the absolute value world, the absolute value of -4 is +4. So all the negative values become positive. On to number 8. Solve the equation for x. Now, with an absolute value equation like this, one of the main things that you have to do is isolate that absolute value all by itself to get it in standard form. What this means is you're going to move the 6 over with the 13. Nothing else to do. And to move it, you're going to subtract it over there. Subtract it from both sides, because what thou doest to one side of thy equation, doeth unto the other side. All right, so once we do that, we end up with the absolute value of 7x plus 3 equals 13 minus 6, which gives us the standard form. Absolute value of 7x plus 3 equals 7. Now, what do? We should write two equations, because by definition, an absolute value is the distance a number is from 0 on the number line. You have both a positive and a negative distance. So drop the absolute value bars and write 7x plus 3 equals 7, and 7x plus 3 equals -7. Now, solve for x. Subtract that 3 on both sides, giving you 7x equals 4 and 7x equals -10. And then our final step is to divide both sides by 7 on both of these. Once we do that, we end up with 4 over 7 for x and -10 over 7 for x. Now, just as with every equation that you ever solve, you always should check to make sure that your solution is absolutely correct. And I leave you to that because I don't want to spend up a lot of your time plugging in numbers, but oh well, I guess I will. You know I like to do it anyway. So this is my check for both of these, and I do encourage you to check them as well. The absolute value of 7 times 4 over 7 is going to give us a 4. As soon as I get done writing it, plus 3, it's going to give us a 7, plus 6 on the outside is definitely going to equal 13. Again, that is the absolute value of 4 plus 3, which is 7, and 7 plus 6 is definitely 13. And we can continue to really do it, or you can kind of do it intuitively like I did and know that this works. I feel good about that one. All right, now let's plug in the -10. 7 times -10 over 7 is going to give us a -10, Negative 10 plus 3 is going to give us a negative 7. And the absolute value of negative 7 is, of course, you guessed it, 7. And we get the same thing all over again. 7 plus 6 does equal 13. So again, the absolute value of negative 10 plus 3 is 7. 7 plus 6 is 13. And we win. Remember that when you have absolute values, if you have a negative between the bars, it's going to be a positive. Because distance is not negative. It's just how far is negative 7 from 0 on the number line. It's 7 units away. That's what the absolute value bars measure, the distance. So that works. So you're going to type in both answers separated by commas. 4 over 7, comma, negative 10 over 7. Now before you ask me, can you put in a decimal? Please read the directions. If you can put in a decimal, the directions will say round to the nearest hundredth or round to the nearest tenth. More than likely, they'll say enter an integer or a fraction, which means do not make a decimal happen. On to number 9.